Prepare to qualify.
You have entered the Fandom Effect, a podcast filled with anime, video games, comics, MMA, and unlimited ideas. Each week, a new guest will press enter and discuss how they're making their dreams come true. With your host, Mark the Bushido Geek Halberg. It's time to enter the Fandom Effect. Now, please insert 25 cents to continue. You have one playthrough. Better make it count.
This is Tom Bacon. You are listening to episode 7 of the Fandom Effect, directed by J.J. Abrams. Da-da-da.
And we are here with episode 7 with our guest, Tom Bacon, who is not only a pixel artist, but has done a lot of work with comic book coloring as well. Of course, links will be posted when this episode airs and is launched. But definitely check out everything that he's doing, and currently a new project called Below Earth. Seriously, it's pretty amazing how crazy this thing looks. You guys are probably thinking pixel art, and you're like, "Oh, what's that going to look like?" It's phenomenal. Definitely encourage you guys to check it out. Very excited to have him on as a guest today. So we're going to jump right into it, guys. But I know you're going to have an awesome time listening to this, and probably one of the more favorite episodes I've done so far.
Hi.
I know we kind of have touched on a few things before, and I think one of the things I want to kind of talk about first is we've mentioned conventions and spending all your money and stuff, but you have definitely a different take on it, because a lot of times when you go to these conventions, you're an artist, you have a booth, and obviously you take breaks and go look at other stuff. But would you say when you go to a convention as a artist with a booth versus someone who's just there to enjoy yourselves, like, do you have a different mentality when you go to a convention as an artist? Or
As an artist, you go into it like a business. You are there to have a good time. And when you first get into it, you're like, okay, here's my product. Here's how much I put into this convention. Because just showing up for the convention doesn't mean that you're good and you're making it. It's just like it's like a small business investment. You've bought all the table dressings and the artwork, and you've been the investor to invest into this business, and now here's your little business shop. So you're hoping that you can make everything back and take some extra money home, and be able to buy food at the end of the show with some friends and a drink or two. So, but at the same time, you also are putting, I guess when I look at it, the artwork that I'm bringing is becoming more and more representative of me, and it's kind of like I'm showing off part of my soul. So I'm kind of living off of people's feedback. Like, I'm excited to be there, but when people walk up, and you can walk by, you don't have to stop by at all. But when people do walk up, the few people that do say hi and want to talk, like, that gives me life. It gives me fuel for continuing and to keep making stuff.
that's very interesting, and I can definitely say, when the 2-year-old grows past the "if you leave the house, I think you're gonna never come back" stage of of his life.
At 3 years old, I'm moving out.
Yeah, nope. Sorry, I've had enough of this whole thing. See ya. And you kind of bring him to conventions. If you're at one and I'm going to it, I will definitely stop by and be like, hey, that guy that bored you to death for 3 hours? Here he is. This guy.
But yeah, like when you're going to a show, like you're going up to meet up with friends, you're going to have a good time, and you might have certain objectives. You got to go see this person, and try to walk around the whole show and stuff like that. When you're behind the table, you know that you're going to spend most of your time behind the table. You might miss out on a lot, and that's just kind of how it is. The beautiful thing, though, is a lot of the artists at these shows become friends, because it's kind of like a communal thing where, at least most artists are cool at the shows. Every once in a while there's a jerk, but most of the people are cool and sweet and are like supporting each other. And if they see someone is new to the scene or whatever, there's a lot of like helpful, positive feedback and support. So I've gathered a lot of friends, like very good friends from all these shows. And every time we go to the shows, I'm always happy to see like a little art fam that I've gathered. And another huge positive is that my girlfriend of almost 7 years, we have been doing the shows together. We typically have separate tables, and she has completely different artwork than like what I do. But it's very nice when you and your partner can share the same um, gigs and um, goals and whatnot.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you're definitely gonna have to send me that artwork so that I can
Yeah,
eventually, like have her on and be like, "Yeah, you're way better than that Tom guy." Yeah,
He's-
don't tell him that. But
yeah. He's lame.
uh, and I feel like that's interesting. Do you guys like try to bounce ideas off each other? I know you said she's a different style. But do you guys ever try to like bounce that stuff off each other at all?
Yeah, honestly, she's my best critic. She'll be real. Nothing is sugar coated. Maybe sometimes she can't hear me right now, but for the most part, it's kind of like there is a. I know I'm doing well if she really likes it, and if she's very good at like picking out like something that is bothering her or something in it that like doesn't look right. So you as when you're making a piece, if you've been looking at it for like 3 days, you will miss stuff because you've been focusing on this little point and this little point. But she's very good at just walking up and being like, looks cool, but this right here, what's going on there? What is that? I don't like it." And then it's
So
like, and then I can objectively look at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I see what you mean. And then I can work out the colors or the silhouette or whatever.
okay, so a good eye for being able to kind of maybe see things that were glossed over or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, very cool. Does she have any big projects she's working on, kind of like your Below Earth project?
She actually just finished a pin Kickstarter that she successfully funded. We just got the reward shipped out. So it was a hard enamel pins. She actually found a supplier that makes wood pins. So the wood pins were um, sustainably sourced, and they are sea slug designs. Very very cute sea slugs.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's
But
pretty.
besides that, no huge projects right now.
Okay. Well, obviously you have your own big project you've been working on, which we had kind of briefly mentioned, Below Earth. So for people listening that obviously have heard, they're like Below Earth, like what? Like, how can you go on giving everyone like just kind of like a an overview of like what that is, kind of your thought behind it?
Yeah, it is a exploration into a dark, mysterious world of ancient ruins and lost civilizations that are definitely below the Earth we as we know today.
Very cool.
And
Yeah, and the artwork to me looked amazing. How did like that idea to start something like this kind of like how do you come up with something like that creative as an aspect?
um, I mean, I'm already I like stuff like I think we talked about the movie Descent, and I think it's something in the back of my mind that always creeps me out. I think there's another movie called like As Above, So Below, which was another horror movie. It's not bad, but I'm always intrigued by stuff like that. And even like classic Zelda games where you like blow up a wall and you like go underground to a cave, or when you're playing Diablo and you find caves. So it's I don't go cave diving very much, but I'm always like interested in a mystery. And I was actually just kind of screwing around one night, and I made just like what looks like a crack in the earth, and I was just drawing it in pixel art, and I just kept making it. And as I was drawing it, it's kind of like I just started to wonder like, oh, what's down there? And the whole story is kind of me just digging through kind of the earth and just kind of discovering what's down there for myself. So as I'm making the story, I'm also like just imagining the layers and layers going deeper and deeper and seeing what's further and further below, and using all my influences of history and ruins and sci-fi and just kind of like building this old weird ancient world down there.
So I think you've effectively been able to make me seem just like the lamest person. I don't know. I mean, no, that was like super. Like I was just like, man, that's like, so cool. And I think the fact that you said I don't go take cave diving too much, I can tell you emphatically that's not a casual thing. Just be like, yeah, I go cave diving once in a while, but don't worry about it.
I mean, I've never been cave diving. I've been in some caves. Most recently, Mammoth Caves in Kentucky. Those are really cool.
Whereabouts in Kentucky is that again?
I couldn't tell you. It's somewhere Mammoth Cave, Kentucky, and it was so hot when we went that literally we had to go looking for other caves because there's other cave systems near there. But we had to go looking for other caves just to get out of the heat because we were camping and it was like July
Oh, geez.
or
Oh, yeah.
August, and it was it was so hot.
Yeah. I lived in the northern tip of Kentucky for a little over a year, and I know the heat very well.
Oh, yeah. This is near Bowling Green in Glasgow.
Okay.
Southern
I
Kentucky.
think that might have been a couple hours from where I was. I
Yeah.
worked at a university on like the very northern tip of Kentucky, like just like 15 minutes south of like downtown Cincinnati.
Oh, cool.
I was not very far into Kentucky, but
Okay.
yeah, no, not very far at all. But I technically was living in Kentucky, even though it really wasn't. But it was, I didn't have to say I lived in Ohio. So
Yeah.
I grew up in Michigan, so saying you live in Ohio is, a sore subject when you
Oh, is it?
when you're born in Michigan. So,
Oh,
but now I live in Wisconsin, so I'm,
I'm much more familiar.
yes, it's sometimes the pain of I'm a big football guy, so sometimes the pain of being a Lions fan in the heart of Packer country is.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm about 30 minutes south of Green Bay where they play, so.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. But so far, I mean, I know you have a few things up on the website for Below Earth. Are you? I guess is the goal to just have like different pages, or are you trying to? Do you want to turn this into like an art book?
Essentially, yeah, a giant art book. And I'm trying to figure out how big. How big is too big? How big is not big enough? But a lot of the pieces I've made are basically pages from the book, and I'm kind of just designing it one big piece at a time. I've been trying to write it as well, but I've kind of gone with like the George Miller Mad Max style, where I'm just making storyboards, and those storyboards are telling the story, as opposed to a traditional script, because it's going to be more of like an exploration of the world, and like a light narration of it. And there's I don't have like a character focus. It's more of just about the world and learning more about what's down there. And once I accomplish that hurdle and that mountaintop, then I can move on to deeper parts of the lore. And people have said, "Is this? I could see this as an RPG game. I could see this as a tabletop. I could see this as a video game." And I'm like, "Yes, I would love to do that. I have to figure out how to do that."
Yeah, you very easily could with kind of the basic artwork that you already have as like levels and level design, and I've been dabbling in different aspects of video game design. So yeah, they are not wrong when they say that would be just a very fun game, especially with Steam being so easily accessible these days on PCs and
Oh
laptops
yeah.
and everything. Now's like almost the perfect time to have something that you can easily shoot out to people.
Yeah, and a lot of the environments, I mean, I could definitely bring into. I know I've seen a whole bunch of like pixel art apps for game design that are fairly cheap, that you could definitely port over and then kind of just design out entire levels, which would be really cool. I think that would be a really awesome, is to just do some kind of like point and click or side scroller or something like that. But that would be like down the line.
Oh yeah. I would imagine finishing the books, probably, obviously the first priority. I know you'd said you're not really too sure, like how big you want to make it, but I can definitely say I will be following the progress of the book pretty earnestly, and when you do start making the book available, I will definitely be buying one because the artwork
yeah.
is just amazing.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and obviously, way down the line when that time does come, you guys, of course, I will be posting the link where you guys can grab the book. But if you guys are listening to this and it sounds very interesting, definitely check out it's tombaconartist.com. I feel like I don't need to explain that there's 3 W's before that. I would hope not. And after how long
Yeah,
the
I mean,
internet's been a thing.
you really don't even have to put W's anymore.
Yeah, not yeah. Usually it'll auto populate it. I know there's definitely a lot of things you guys can kind of go on to different avenues. Check out some of the other stuff on there. But if you're already hearing this and it sounds super interesting, definitely go to the website, check it out. It's seriously amazing artwork, and I know you've got a lot of other different stuff on there too that you've been able to work with. And we had mentioned it previously, and we were kind of like talking and not recording. The work that you've done with,
Sure.
and I'm going to butcher even though we tried working on it earlier for me, JJ Kawikine on Akuma and Exilion, like two different comic book series. So kind of branching into that a little bit. Obviously, pixel art and comic book art are vastly different. How do you go about working on two things that are so different?
So honestly, comic books are what I wanted to start with. I This is a part of a whole larger theme that I'll come back to later when we get to some of the later questions. But like initially, I just wanted to make comics. I think as a kid, I was like, I love comic books. I want to make comics. I have comics I made when I was 6 years old. But I think being a comic artist, doing all the interiors, doing all the illustration, it's a lot, and I still wanted to be a part of comics. I've drawn a couple of my own. I do have a free issue up on my website of a solo issue that will never get a sequel unless I decide to later on. But I do have an issue. It's called Normalville. It's a sci-fi book. It's kind of like Men in Black meets Hellboy. That kind of genre, dark, mysterious, and involving a government um, bureau of sorts that deals with the weird stuff. But I was near graduating from college, which is almost 10 years come June, and I had a career counselor, and he was like, if you want to get into comics, and it's a good way to get your feet wet is to do coloring. And I was like, oh yeah, there's always a colorist, because when you're growing up and you're reading comics, you always follow like the artists, and you forget. Honestly, I can't tell you any colorists I knew about back in the day, but now whenever I read an issue and I love the colors, I'm like, who is this colorist? Because they're amazing. Colors kind of get forgotten about because you're so focused on the writer and the artist. So, but anyway, that was a way to kind of get involved in it. So there's a whole bunch of forums I was going on to. I think one was called like Digital Webbing Inc. Though I did work with another indie company in California. And I just started doing it, and I have learned a lot because, and I think my coloring skills have increased a lot, and I've tried to take those coloring skills to my pixel artwork because I feel like I'm a better colorist than I am a illustrator. So my pixel art is just an excuse for me to use my strengths, which is color and value, to still design the worlds that I want to design. And then when I'm coloring comics, I can color really awesome artwork and hopefully not ruin it and make it look as good as I can. So every time I've colored for DJ or for his book or for the other book he's a part of, Amakua, like he's always like, "Oh man, it's so awesome! Like you make me want to get better." And I'm like, I that really? That's cool." I'm like, "You make me want to get better. Like that's so nice." So and DJ, like his he likes superheroes. He likes big huge muscles. If you look at any of the pages, you can tell that he was a big fan of like Jim Lee and like 90s X-Men and stuff like that. And his own book Exilion, he's explained as like Lord of the Rings meets 90s X-Men. There's lots of action, there's giant swords, there's dwarves, there's wizards, there's elves. So you get like a little bit of everything. And the Amakua, story is made by Mana Comics, Mana MANA, and that's kind of like Hawaiian-inspired superheroes. Um, and that creator, he really, Chris Caravallo, he really just wanted to make superheroes that were completely Hawaiian, who were inspired by Hawaiian lore and history and all that good stuff. And they're crazy. They're all kinds of designs. They're really cool.
Yeah, the artwork definitely is very impressive. Like the overall artwork that I was able to kind of look at on your website.
Yeah, and DJ actually, I worked with him on his book Exilian, and then he started working for Amakua, and then he's like, "Hey, I'll do it, but I need my man Tom to color it and all that good stuff." So we've had a great relationship. That's been a lot
Awesome.
of fun.
I think it's like you had kind of mentioned earlier about conventions. It's the when you meet and get to know those cool people and are able to just kind of help each other out. It's like you always like you bounce from one thing to the next, and
Yeah.
I think kind of what you just shared is a perfect example of that. If you or him were a jerk to each other, like you never who knows what opportunities could have been missed.
Oh, yeah. And I mean that's happened. I've had a lot of projects, and some people just don't mix, and it happens.
Oh yeah, I think with kind of any main walk of life, it's we could kind of briefly talk about it before, but same thing with podcasting. Sometimes it's just yeah, you have a good idea and the execution just kind of doesn't really pan through, so to so good. But
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
uh, so you had kind of said comic books was the main goal and kind of the bigger driving force. So is there I know you're working on Blow Earth, but do you have like ideas for like a new comic series like you'd like to do if you perhaps could kind of get other people to help you out, fill perhaps different roles or
I do, just like any kid. I mean, I've been writing my own little silly stories kind of like my whole life. Um and even my own fanfics. Um so I've kind of been for a long time thinking about a way to bring all the characters I've made over the years into one story, and um I've got one story that I do want to make, and I would have to hire other people to work on it with me, but it would be like a buddy cop, not a buddy cop, but it'd be like a buddy story, but they'd be like hired henchmen and kind of like going through hijinks and trying to find jobs and trying to pay rent and stuff like that. But it'd be like in a superhero, supervillain world essentially. And I'm sure that concept has been done, but I have my own little world that I would want to do.
I mean, it definitely sounds like something you're going to be taking more of my money from down the road.
Just because I think a lot of us young millennials, we spend our 20s trying to pay rent or to make ends meet. So something that I would want to capture in a big, crazy superhero filled world.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I think definitely to your point, it's like you try to find those brief moments of like, yeah, like what am I gonna do to pay the rent today? So for coming from the kind of the background that you had, and for perhaps others that maybe are just starting that initial journey, like kind of like you were told when you were your college professor, I told you, would you say that starting off in the world of like learning comic book coloring is a good avenue as a starting point?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, if you want to get into comics, I mean, you should be developing your own style as an artist. But coloring was definitely a way to like kind of get used to the whole process and finding out if you can produce 20 or 30 pages of artwork in a month or two. Like, I just finished this like 40 issues in the past month, and like that's the biggest I've done. All
Wow, is that on
it,
both the two series that we were talking about?
on the Amakua, I just finished since he had me color the entire issue of the entire most recent issue. Yeah, it was like 40 pages. It was nuts. And I right before that, I finished another issue for some local guys. I can link you that one as well. But there's another comic with another guy, a bunch of group of guys from Chicago who have a bunch of more like urban street level heroes which actually look really cool. But so I just finished an issue for them. So I think I was very warmed up from that to do the 40 issues right afterwards. So it's about 60 issues I've done between February, March, and April. And that's like the most I've done in that amount of time ever.
Yeah, that is definitely a lot. What's a typical time frame of a page turnaround?
Like a page, I mean, maybe a day or two. And if I've got a day job at the same time, then it's like even harder.
Right.
So luckily, being able to work from home the past month, I've had a little extra time to work from home, so that definitely helped out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's making the most out of the bad situation.
Yeah, no, like I mean, we're all bored at home, but I at least like had stuff to do all the time, so I at least had like a project to work on to keep me busy that had deadlines that needed to get done. So
Right. Yeah. And I think that it kind of helps you kind of keep that focus, and I'm sure maybe even perhaps helps like bounce random ideas kind of when you're just kind of, ping ponging kind of random things around in your head. Uh, I know
oh
we
yeah,
kind of mentioned, specific projects that'd be fun to do. And we've mentioned it. There's just so many different people and so many different projects and comics that this might be more of a vaguer question, but in from what everything that
okay.
you've experienced and going to conventions and meeting people, is there someone that you haven't been able to work with yet that is doing a project that you would love to be able to get your hands on, whether it's comic book coloring, pixel related, or perhaps like some other avenue of comics that you're kind of trying to get your feet more wet, so to speak?
Honestly, if he ever listens to this, there's this other artist, Athel. He's a really sweet dude. Athel Flowers. You should definitely check him out. If you are a fan of like Steve Ditko related, like 60s, 70s artwork, um, like pop comic artwork, he's amazing. And lately he's been posting some really amazing stuff. But I really just like the idea I just pitched to you, I want to pitch to him, but I don't have like a script or anything.
Mm,
But I would love to give him like a comic project, and I don't know what he does as a schedule, but he's always posting amazing like superhero artwork that just reminds me of like the '60s. But he's a really awesome artist.
oh, but yeah, I will definitely check that out. And I mean, the beauty of the internet is, maybe I'll find some way to be like, hey, here's this soundbite. Go ahead and listen to it. And
Yeah, he'll be like, "Oh, really?" He's like, Tom's okay, but nah, I'm past."
yeah, then I'd have to that awkward. Yeah, sorry, Tom. I never heard back from him, so I don't.
Yeah,
I tried for you, but yeah, I never heard anything. So who knows? Oh well. We'll try again another day. Um,
yeah, right.
but yeah, if you
But no,
if someone out there listening knows that guy,
oh yeah,
share this video to him. I mean,
I mean, I'll see him at the next convention, which will probably be next year. But it's one of those things where you like. So I mean, we talk to each other at conventions, and he's really chill. But it's like you're never sure if you want to ask or offer or propose. You're like, I don't know. He might think it's stupid. Like you don't want to ask that kid to hang out or because they might be too cool.
oh yeah, no,
You're like,
I've definitely been on
they're gonna.
both sides of the fence in that
Yeah.
situation. Ones where it works out and ones where it doesn't. And I guess just this is probably more general advice for everyone out there is a lot of times, like I mean, even you yourself, people out there like I guess we know each we'll know each other now, but before 3 weeks ago, you had never heard of me.
Oh no.
Um,
Yeah, no.
and
And I've listened to a couple of your episodes now, so.
yeah, and obviously now I'll try to make sure I keep in touch and check on how our work's going and stuff. And I think yeah, like it's like you never know what could happen because there's just from my standpoint, there's people I've reached out to like yourself that have like oh yeah, totally into it. And I've also like I reached out to another artist, Wiznaku, uh, who does a lot of like anime art that I've seen at conventions a couple times. Very politely
Oh.
told me no.
Yes. Right.
And I've had people that just ignore you or kind of just yank you around a little bit. but I guess my advice would just be, I mean, I'm not trying to give you advice. This is more just
It's all good, man.
advice for people out there that are, in those situations where you just don't know. Is yes, there's always the chance of stuff not working out. Obviously, in your situation, you have to be more careful because you guys are all kind of one bigger community, trying to help each other out with being artists, and you don't want to accidentally burn a bridge, even if you're not intending to. So, from your standpoint, I do get it. Or you need to make sure you're treading more carefully.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
for everyone else that can take the hit, so to speak, and not burn the bridge so much, it's you never know what could happen. So just kind of shoot your shot when you can, and just be smart about it, but also have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I definitely encourage everyone to check out everyone we've mentioned so far and help support everyone in this time. That's why I'll try to make sure I include every link that we've talked about and everything. And I'm sure I will at some point forget one, but as soon as someone calls me out on it, I can fix it. And
Oh, I'm writing them down.
yeah,
Don't worry.
especially with everything going on today, because like you said, even when things start getting better from where they are now, it will be a long time before a convention decides to open. And even when one decides to open, who knows how many people are going to go to those first couple conventions.
We basically accepted we're canceling all of our conventions this year. I mean, even if one happens, or even the shows like in the fall, like I've kind of just like wrote them off because a lot of them have postponed to the fall, and that's going to be a very busy time for me. So I just accepted that this is just not going to be the year.
Yeah, and
I think a lot of people have had to say that.
Yeah, and which is definitely a huge shame. And we had touched on it before, but like you had said, a lot of artists maybe don't have a day job and really rely on convention money to help them out and to get their name out there. So that's why I definitely, one of my goals on myself is to try to reach out to as many artists as I can that are not being able to go to conventions, that are looking for ways to get their art out there, and have them on as a guest, and they can help promote their work and perhaps work of others that they know as you've done. So I definitely, like I said, write all the links down to make sure you send them to me, so I can make sure I post all the links. And again, just will highly encourage everyone. I'll say this 10 times. Encourage, support the local artists. For those of you who are going to conventions or have been to conventions or thinking of going to conventions, those things, trust me, would not be the same experience if you didn't have an artist alley and people to talk to. And you had mentioned it earlier, like when people come up to you and just want to have a conversation, that kind of like warms your soul a little bit. And I can say from my side of it, from doing that, there's been a couple people that I've actually been able to sit and have long conversations with. I guess the biggest one would be Neil Adams for Batman.
Oh yeah.
Who, I mean, probably one of such a nice guy. And I'm gonna blank on some of the names here, but I was able to kind of like actually sit there and talk with one of the main artists of the Superman 1000 issue that came out, I think, last year. And Pon, who is one of the artists who did the more recent Raven 12-issue miniseries.
Oh, okay.
And one of the older artists who did, it's a very old reference, but Static Shock from the late 90s.
Okay. Like the comic series?
The TV show. He did artwork for the TV show.
Oh, nice.
And those are probably like the ones that I was able to, like, we had 5-10 minute conversations with these guys, and got stuff signed, and was able to kind of like and it's been years since I've met those people and had those conversations, but to your point, those are the ones that stick out. Those are the memories that come top of mind.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
I know
definitely, like when conventions open back up and you actually are willing to go, talk to the artists, people. Like, you're there for a reason. Talk to them. Like you've mentioned how long stuff typically takes, and I think maybe some people that are hearing that now maybe have a better understanding of how long like work really goes into some of the stuff that you and your fellow artists are doing. I'll annoy and push people as much as I can to talk to the artists, because I've definitely had friends who they were like, I don't really go into artist alley too much, and I would always bug them like, you just walk down it like once or twice. I guarantee you will buy something.
Yeah, there is so much cool stuff you'll see, and a lot of people are extremely nice and really cool. Um, Albeit if it's the last day of a show, some of those artists are totally exhausted, so they might not be super social. They might be super tired just because you've been putting all your energy into a show. I know on Sundays at a show, I am hanging by a thread, but I put on my best face.
Which is, I think it's to be commended. One thing I actually am curious about is, I think I'm sure I know you've seen it. A lot of artists will tend to do like drawings while they're at conventions, like because they're kind of waiting for people to talk to them. Do you do that? Do you do that as well?
Yeah, I sometimes do. I used to do that a lot more, but with the artwork now, I've kind of transitioned to um mostly standing up and facing out and greeting people and then talking to them as they come up. Um, so when I do my convention style now, I have a really big display, so I have really big pieces of artwork, and it's my way of drawing you in
Oh, there you go.
with the pretty
The
with the
the,
pretty
the
colors.
yeah the candy inside the ice cream van. Just come
Yeah,
over here. Everything's fine. Just
yeah. But also as a way to like not put on any pressure. I don't like hard sales or hard salesmanship, whatever. I'm of the be cool, be chill. If you don't like it, that's cool. But if you want to hang out and talk, that's cool too. So, but yeah, like typically I like to look up, and if you're an artist behind the table, you can actually miss a lot of good conversations and even miss sales if your head is always in your sketchbook, and it's just like a social thing you got to work on.
oh yeah.
So I myself I prefer to be in my hoodie behind the table. I don't want anybody to see me. I just want to be curl up and just doodle and just be in my own little zone. But you're at the show, you brought your stuff. You might as well, you gotta talk to people. You gotta sell yourself a little bit. So
Oh yeah, I can definitely attest to that. And there has been instances where we've me and friends have gone up to people to perhaps like, oh, their artwork's kind of cool, and then like to your point, the only person talking to us is whoever they brought, who's just like, what do you want to buy? We're like, we were
yes,
kind of
right,
hoping to like chat with the person, figure out what their
yes,
artwork inspirations from or something about them, and then the person will kind of like give you that half look up as they're sketching, and then we're just like, all right, we're just gonna walk away. Like it's not
yeah,
really worth it if you can't give 2 minutes of your time. So I think it's
yeah,
commendable like what you're doing. And I this is just a random thought, but I know from going to conventions, I think it'd be super cool like if you did have like, because I know you've mentioned a lot of people are requesting more like time lapse videos. If
yeah.
you ever had like a time lapse video on your table, like even like you could still be on the front, but
Not
like
yet.
showcase like,
Yeah.
yeah, like some sort of like even if it's just like a laptop open widescreen and it's just
Hmm.
playing a thing on a loop. Like I know a lot of times when I did see artists that would have like laptops playing time skips, those were always things that
Yes.
that drew me in. Uh,
Yeah. Actually, that would be a good idea because now I've got the time to put together some time lapse videos.
yeah, and with Adobe Premiere, it's surprisingly easier than I thought to do something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, that's all I know how to do. The only thing I know how to do
Yeah.
is Premiere. I'm learning. I'm good. I'm getting good with Photoshop, but the only thing I know how to do with Premiere is I put my audio track on there. I put my logo. I stretch my logo over the entire audio track, and that's as much
Nice.
as I can do.
um, so there's a very popular app for iPad for drawing called Procreate, and it will automatically save a time lapse of your artwork. So if you ever look up like Procreate time lapse videos on YouTube, there's tons of them, but it's so nice and easy. Oh, and you probably see that like Instagram as well. People will share their artwork and then they'll share the time lapse because they made it in that iPad app. Um, and it's just really cool. It's really cool to immediately have that, and then you can kind of use it as you want.
Hmm. Well, there you go, everyone. There's a little free extra fandom tip for you guys this week. So So,
use Procreate.
yeah, use
It's
Procreate.
only $10.
And don't take that out of context.
Yeah. Okay. So it's if you've never heard of it, it always sounds weird when you first tell someone like, Well, what do you use? Procreate, as in pro whatever. It's but
Yeah.
it's a popular iPad app.
Oh
So
yeah, no, I don't have a. It's been a long time since I've had an iPhone or an iPad, but I would imagine that's like if you're used to that kind of like side of the technology world, then I would imagine like that name isn't unfamiliar. But yes, if you haven't heard of that, you have an iPhone or anything, is that a free app or do you have to pay?
I think it's like $10. But I don't think there's an Android version. But if you've got a $300 iPad or a $1,000 iPad, it'll work on either one.
Well, there you go. There's download and buy Procreate and start doing some fun time lapse stuff. I think the only, I guess, key main thing I wanted to kind of to touch on, besides before this goes off the rails even more, you've mentioned on the website that a lot of the bigger background and inspiration kind of came from a lot of stuff in game development and different games and movies in the 90s. Is there, first of all, I mean, the background of game development warrants its own conversation.
Sure.
But is there a specific like 90s game and movies that really started it, or is it kind of just that era in general?
I think the Super Nintendo era is extremely influential on me. I mean, I played a lot of the games that came out. I've got the Super Nintendo Classic, but
Oh yeah, same here.
from Zelda to Star Fox, and I played a little bit of on the NES, Earthbound, but like I liked big story and mystery, and it was just pixel art back then. It was just 16-bit graphics, but there's a whole world you could explore and whole worlds for you to do. That was I think it's the games really started to look more realistic to me, I think. And then once you got to the Nintendo 64, I had Ocarina of Time, I had Majora's Mask, and I was in heaven. So just big worlds for you to explore and mysteries to uncover, and yeah, I think a lot of that stuff has really stayed with me. So big adventures and big worlds.
Oh yeah, and I think like to your point, like I was born in '89, so I was kind of late to some of this stuff, but my dad was so into it that's I still grew up and watching and playing a lot of those games. I think the first game I ever beat was River Raid on the Atari,
Nice.
like way back. And in different episodes, I've had discussions about how different Sega Genesis games for the system and how games back then were more designed because they hated you, whereas games today are like, here's easy
Yeah.
mode, and here's easy mode where you can't die. Whereas back then, when you're
Right.
playing games like The Lion King and X-Men Clone Wars 2 on the Sega Genesis, it was like, here's 16 levels, you have 3 lives, I hope you can make it, go. And
Right.
uh,
Oh man, died.
yeah, and you just die repeatedly, and until you inevitably. I mean, there was no throwing controllers back then. Back then when a game got frustrated, you just turned it off and said, "I'll try again later." But now people throw
Right.
their controllers across the room. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely very interesting. Like you've kind of said, like those different eras in games like Earthbound, which is it's just funny you say that because I play Smash with a few buddies of mine every day on our lunch break. We set up a Discord
Nice.
server and we just digitally play Smash. And whenever someone gets stuck
cool.
playing Lucas or Ness, a friend of mine always goes, "There's too many Earthbound characters in this game." So it's just kind of funny, like the way you said it was exactly how we kind of joke around about it.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, it's
Good stuff.
those old 16 8-bit arcade games that no matter how much time has passed, somehow some of these games will just hold more true than a lot of games today. Like I can't tell you how many times I've replayed Chrono Trigger just because of how amazing that game was, and it still is. I mean, to me, that game still holds up to this day.
I have to play that. I think that's on the classic. I still have to play that one. That and Secret of Mana, I know I have to play.
Yes, I'm very behind on Secret. So I've only briefly played Secrets of Mana, but it's a very, very good game series. If you still have a working PS4, not PS4, PS2, Jesus. There's an older I guess it's an older style RPG called Radiata Stories.
Right.
Yeah, Radiata Stories. So Radiata.
Okay.
It probably came out in, I'd say, 2006, 2007.
Okay.
To date is, in that era is probably, it's definitely in my top 5 RPGs of all time. But it's a
Oh.
very, game that kind of followed that old school mentality of what an RPG game was, where you play the hero and you recruit allies, and it was definitely like a game that took different elements and then kind of was ahead of its time on and other stuff. And so, yeah, if everyone out there, obviously including you, like if you have a working PS2, I'm sure the game would not be too expensive right now, and it's a phenomenal RPG that I feel like encompasses a lot of that old school mentality of like a Chrono Trigger or a Legend of Mana or a Zelda, like that storyline mentality, but then combines it with a lot of like the newer elements of what people like about in like late 2000s.
I might have to watch a Let's Play. It's been a while since I've had a PS2.
Until mine dies, it's a brick that
Yeah.
won't die. When
Yeah.
it was in, geez, I think it was in my parents' basement for 6 years when I went off to college and did other things, and then eventually it was like, I might want to boot it up again, but there's no way it's gonna work. And then I flicked it on, and sure enough, the light came on, and no issues. So until it dies, I'll keep playing it. But yeah, I would imagine there's probably lots of YouTube or Let's Plays or something on that game, and if I can find a good one, I'll definitely I'll send that to you as well.
Nice. I got another weird game, a Super Nintendo game. I just rewatched a whole bunch of Let's Plays for. It's called Out of This World, or Another World. The re-release might have been Another World.
It sounds really familiar.
I think it's called Out of This World. It
You
is
said that's NES or
probably
SNES?
Super Nintendo and I think Sega and PC. But that one, no, it's called Another World. No, I'm sorry. No, Super Nintendo version was called Out of This World. I think there was a re-release called Another World. It's weird. It's like an adventure game, side-scrolling, some platforming, like action adventure game. It's very cinematic, like pixel art, like cool pixel art cinematics, and it's like this scientist gets teleported to another world, and he's fighting his way out of captivity from these weird, like chunky looking Goron aliens. And there's really cool landscapes. It's dark and dreary, and sometimes really pretty, but it's lots of action. So the scientist has to escape with his buddy, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at some stuff right now, and it apparently a couple years ago had a 20th anniversary. It's on Steam. So for everyone out there, this game is on Steam for $9.99. But I'm sure if you wait till Steam summer sale, which I think is going to be rumored to be end of June, I'm sure that game will be like $2. Right. So inevitably, I'll spend $50-$60 on games that maybe I'll play 2 of them. But there's a few games I'm pretty excited about. But it looks like it has a 9 out of 10 on Steam. So for a game that came out in 91, that's pretty impressive.
It's a cool game. It's really weird. It's brutal. I remember playing it, and it's like really hard. There's really weird mechanics because the only weapon you have is a laser gun, but the laser gun creates a shield, and it has a charge-up feature, and blah, blah. Like it's very strange. Nothing is explained to you. It's all trial and error. So, like old school games do.
No,
so.
Yeah, like I mean, you just mentioned frustrating older games like that. This is older than that, but I think Oregon Trail is still one of the most frustrating games.
Yeah,
of that.
Oregon Trail for sure. You have died of exhaustion and dysentery.
Yeah, and you've died of dysentery. The board game is just as hard, if not slightly harder.
What is it?
Yeah, there is a board game. It is fun. I'll give everyone the tip to beat it. As weird as this is going to sound, you have to let your teammates die.
And then you win.
You don't have a choice. You get like it's very weird in a weird way. You get like cards and you can like cure people of the diseases and stuff that they get, but you have obviously a limited amount, and stuff keeps
Okay.
happening. So we tried playing it where everyone lived, and you lose, you lose, you lose, lose. We realized that if every 3 to 5 turns you purposely let someone die, because when someone dies in the board game, they distribute their cards among the other players.
Oh,
So we
so then
realized
you're
that if you strategically plan out when one of your teammates will die, that the last person left will have like 40 cards in their hand and can cure themselves of almost everything. And that's the only reason why I was the last person alive, is because we killed our one friend on purpose. We didn't tell him that was the plan. We just like let him die, and then told them
Oh
the plan
man.
after. And then we just every 4 turns, one person would just keep playing until they got hurt or sick, and then they would die. And then it got down to me with like 4 turns left, and I won. So there's a little tidbit for everyone out there that wants to beat the Oregon Trail board game. You just have to let everyone else die, and you'll be fine. So
It'll be fun. That's how survival goes in the old West.
yeah, a little bit. I've read some. Whenever we had kind of mentioned it, so I'm sure you've done this as well, where you go into those like deep dives of reading articles on random things.
Oh yeah,
And
I just learned about Roanoke.
yeah. Oh yeah, Roanoke's a great mystery to read about.
Yeah.
Just having that many people disappear, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember off the top of my head what words they found written, but there was like it might have been just like
It was.
it was like one word or something.
I just learned about it and I forgot what it was, but it was supposed to be a sign of where they went or what happened to them. Or
Yeah,
something.
but it's like no one can figure it out. But I was just reading about that old novel from like the 80s where like those boys were on the island and like killed each other, but like that was the story, the book, and I guess it's actually based on a story that happened where 15 kids. Yeah. But
really?
So like even though that's fake, I guess the real story is that they all lived, but there was actually a group of like 10 kids that snuck away from some boarding school in England and like sailed away on a boat, and they all fell asleep, and they woke up in the middle of the ocean, and they went 8 days without food or water, ended up on this like random island where people had lived hundreds of years ago, and were able to survive for it was 15 months before a ship found them.
Wow.
And they all lived because I guess they said they learned how to fish, and because people lived there before, they went inside the dorm. There was a dormant volcano, and they went inside and they found live chickens and patches of wild food that had been growing that people had planted and bred centuries ago, and it just had kept going over time.
Wow.
So yeah, if you're ever looking for a good read, that's a really good one. The story of like the Lord of the Flies, but the actual real story on what happened with I think it was like 12 boys that actually all lived for 15 months on a random island in the middle of nowhere.
That is nuts.
Yeah, so I do random like article and deep dives on stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously we've talked about older games, and you actually we've mentioned you actually have a background in it. Where did kind of this background in game development come from?
Actually, right out of college, I was lucky enough to get a like a part-time, not a part-time, a contract position with it's not an intern because I got paid for it. So contract work with NetherRealm Studio,
Oh wow.
which is kind of cool. At the time, they were transitioning from Midway Games to NetherRealm. So it was Ed Boon and the company that brought you the original Mortal Kombat. They used to be part of the whole Midway, but Midway, I'm not sure if Midway is even around anymore, but not at all, right? Yeah, so
I don't think so.
Yeah, so NetherRealm had been reestablished and bought by Warner Brothers, so they had a fresh coat of paint. They had a new studio. So I literally, my first week was like, here's the old studio that's full of leaky ceilings and really gross carpet and all this stuff. So it was dark and dingy, and then they got a fresh studio, so I got to see the beginnings of that. And since then, the building that they're in expanded to like the second floor, and they expanded to the other side of the building, and I think they're running out of space at this point. So hopefully they stay strong. They just announced like Mortal Kombat 11 DLC, I think. So
Yeah, I've seen that blowing up. But I mean, that's definitely very cool. Just to potentially maybe help someone else out there. What not necessarily where you went to school, because I don't want to give away, crazy personal info, but like what like did you go to school for? Like what was,
I actually went for like a general media art, like digital art and animation degree. They kind of teach you. I'm not happy with the school I went to, and they're kind of a trash fire with legal issues. So there are predatory schools out there. So everyone should be careful and do their research better than I did. But so I had like a general digital art and animation degree. So I had a lot of so my portfolio was actually really 2D. It was like 2D graphics, 2D motion graphics, and it just kind of turned out they were looking for someone to work on their 2D motion graphics for. So with the Mortal Kombat's, they have a ladder mode. You can just play through. You can play through up a ladder. You play as one character, beat all the guys, then you beat Shao Kahn, and then you get like a little animated story at the end, and it's like beautifully illustrated, and then somebody animates all the artwork. So that's kind of what I got hired to do, and I got to work on a couple of those for Mortal Kombat 9. But then I quickly got pulled away to work on like when you're in there, I was like a generalist. I did 3D modeling, I did storyboards, I did like putting together cinematic scenes. So once you're like a generalist, they just have you do whatever it is, and you want to keep your job because you're the new guy. So you just kind of do whatever they ask you to do. So, but yeah, I got to work there twice, essentially two different contracts. I worked on Injustice 1. And once again, like once you're in there, if you just got to prove that you have work ethic, that you want to be there, show up on time, all the basic stuff an adult should do. Show up to work, do your work, communicate, don't be a jerk, get to know your coworkers, become friends with them. Unless you hate them, then you should find another job.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But everybody that was there was really cool. So I've still got a bunch of friends that still work there today, and I worked on the cinematics team. So that's another thing is like I was working on cinematics on the cinematics team. In a game studio, you've got tons of departments. So I have a couple friends who went to my same school who joined their animation team over there, and they were like hardcore 3D animators, and their portfolio was like hardcore 3D animators. And it's like, look, I can animate, I can do it. So, yeah, it's kind of like you can apply your specialty to a different department. I mean, a game studio is a great example of you've got coders, you've got digital painters making the concept art who are sometimes like the freaking best painters that you'll see. And then you've got animators who that's their specialty. They take a rig, they take a character that's already finished and they animate the heck out of it, or they take the mocap data and they push it over. So and then cinematics, you need that eye for storytelling. You basically take all the pieces and put it together. Yeah, there's so much games are so much work.
And I'm sure there's going to be people else and then go, wait, go into massive. Why aren't you checking on all these games and all this cool stuff? Like if I can get you on again for a future episode, hopefully I can.
Sure.
And we can kind of delve into some of the deeper detail because I'm definitely myself super interested in hearing some of that other side of it as well. Is there? I know you just kind of when you sigh when you said it. This might be an answer for you on a question, but is there a drive to get back into that at all, or?
At the moment, not really. It's I've kind of found I'm gonna drive home. I know you want to talk about advice for people, but I've kind of found my passion. My passion is kind of doing this pixel art and doing this thing on my own, and I've come to really like doing conventions. And working at the big studio was a lot of fun, but yeah, I don't it's a cool environment, but it's just not exactly for me, I think. And I could get back into it and I could love it, but at the moment I'm okay with where I am. I think for me I got tired of having a creative job all day and then coming home to do more artwork. So I think right now with I do more IT work during the day, so that works a different part of my brain. So when I come home I can be more creative and work on art and stuff like that. So I get to use multiple parts of my brain, and maybe save some more of that creative juice for my personal stuff, which I I I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm at right now. So
No, and I think what you said earlier is probably perhaps a great piece of advice for everyone is just to follow your passion. It's you know regardless of many different topics, or if we have again different stuff that is gone over. I think at the end of the day, I think it's just like you said, and it's to follow your passion. And you could have a plan in your head, and you could start something and realize that this just isn't for me. And it's not like you're not giving up on something. It's just that wasn't for you.
yeah, I realized so in school and when I worked at the game studio, I learned how to 3D model and texture and animate, and I realized I don't like doing it. Sometimes you can get a really cool end result, but in the end, I just don't. That's not going to make me happy. Is if I had to 3D model every day. I could get really good at it and yada yada, but yeah, I mean, so if you're a artist and you're learning, you're in school, I think try a lot of things. Try doing 3D modeling, try 2D animation, try 3D animation. I don't know. You'll figure out if you want to do it or not, because I don't think you should be slugging away at a job your whole life doing something you don't really like. I think try everything and see what you like, and you can kind of figure out what you want to put all your love and passion into.
Yeah, I really couldn't have said it any better. I mean, I think that's that's what it comes down to. For those that have followed my work for a while, I've made drastic change in the last 2 years. I was in sales for 9 years, and that was never
Oh,
something I wanted to start. Even I kind of just got stuck into it, and you just it's almost like you get on that hamster wheel, and you didn't mean to, and then you start running, and then you realize you can't stop.
yeah.
And I did it for way way too long, and eventually it got to the point where my wife, she was just like, just quit, but
Just quit.
find something
Yeah.
else that will give you the time to pursue the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I did. Am I doing what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years right now? No, I know that full well. But does it give me the freedom to do other things? I mean, yeah, it does. I've been able to teach myself audio editing and basic graphic design work, and realize that that's where I want to push towards.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, yeah, and that I think both, you can kind of listen to both. Obviously your story is way more interesting.
Oh,
Uh, uh, but I think just from what what the main idea of a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, and I know for a fact a lot of people with my background are doing. I think your background can really resonate with a lot of people, and that's just to not only showcase the different things you can do, but also just because you do something and realize it's not for you, like you said, you're happy now. Who knows what could have happened if you had stayed in you know game design, spending every day just doing 3D modeling. It's
yeah. I might still be happy, but this is the path I'm on, and that's the path I chose. So
yeah, and it's
yeah.
led to some very cool stories in my that's just my opinion, but uh I definitely feel like other people will think the same thing. And I mean, like I said, I know we've run a little bit longer than initially planned, but
Sure, man.
um
Oh,
yeah, like I said, it's definitely want to have you on again, especially as Below Earth kind of develops. I'd love to perhaps like get you on again when you're almost getting ready to wrap up, and we can kind of obviously make sure that we kind of talk about that project and everything. But for those of you that, like I'd mentioned before, I'm going to mention it again. Below Earth is the big project you're working on right now, and you can find a lot of that stuff at your website, which is tombaconartist.com. And I know you do have an Etsy as well, which is just Etsy/shop/TomBaconArtwork. But I know you had mentioned that Instagram was the more responsive thing for you, which is just Instagram.com/TomBaconArt. Nice and simple. So for those of you that listen to this and you're curious about commissions or updates on Below Earth, or perhaps future projects, or perhaps you want to look into those two comic series that we had mentioned before that you've done work on, which I know I'm going to be checking those out, and probably I'm more than likely purchasing both of them. I will definitely, like, those links will be posted as well. I know we've said it. There'll be lots of links posted from this episode, but I think that's the good thing, because that gives a lot of people out there more avenues and more things to explore, and perhaps find a passion they didn't know about. Maybe someone hears this and looks at some of your stuff, and all of a sudden they start doing pixel art out of nowhere. And I know that's actually an avenue that I eventually would want to get back to and exploring a little bit. So definitely a lot of different links to be posted. And we had you guys got an extra free Fandom Tip. We mentioned the Apple app that you guys can do like the time lapses with, Procreate. And of course, on that main subject, those of you who are familiar with Fandom Effects so far, you guys know you guys always get a Fandom Tip at the end. The one I wanted to kind of highlight, like I said, it's from all different walks of life, and in kind of sticking with the theme of giving you guys different tools to kind of help teach yourself things. There's a YouTube channel out there called Photos in Color. So for those of you that are trying to potentially do very beginning graphic design work, I would recommend starting with like photo manipulation. It's a very early avenue to kind of discover different, the terms and terminology, when it comes to like contrasts and where light comes from, and a lot of the basic stuff I've learned when it comes to basic work. But Photos in Color is like a really good YouTube channel that I actually started off with before I started, delving into certifications and different things. But that it's going to be my quick little Fandom Tip for you guys this week, is to, in addition to everything we're talking about, this is secondary. You guys buy stuff from Tom first, and then go to the free YouTube thing, because it's YouTube, it's free. So, especially like we had said it earlier, and I do want to highlight it, especially with everything going on, still being in quarantine. Even if you're listening to this and we're not in quarantine, odds are, we're still in 2020, and a lot of conventions have not opened up. I know you have you're able to have a day job, but still, I want, push everyone, you guys check out all of Tom's work. I mean, seriously, the Below Earth stuff is, like I said, I've showed it to a few people already that are kind of helping on some behind the scenes stuff. And I already have people that are asking about how much do you charge? And I think it just goes to showcase how good the work really is. When a brief, 30-second, hey, here's one image, and someone's like, already jumping at the bit. So, if you guys didn't need more selling, like I said, I did sales for 9 years. So if you guys want the hard sell, I can go for it. But I would hope that you guys are just going to take my word for it on this one, and definitely check out all the other projects. And then, of course, if you like Tom's work and you like some of the stuff that he's done on, jump to a lot of these other guys that Tom's been able to work with. Check out their work, help support it, help share it. Especially in today's world, the more people that we can kind of help, get helping out, that's, generally what the goal should be. So I definitely want all of you guys to check out everything. All links are going to be posted. I definitely, again, Tom, I appreciate it. And everyone out there, hopefully you enjoyed episode 7 of the Fandom Effect. And, you guys are going to keep following everything. The SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, brand new Google Play podcast as of mid last week. We've been approved. So Android devices, you guys can now check out the podcast as well. And of course, the YouTube, we're going to push some of the different streaming things on there, and some future Let's Plays. A lot of cool things are going in the works right now, and kind of help expanding everything. But definitely keep going with everything, guys. And I know I'm going to talk to you guys soon.
Well, not bad for one playthrough. You have multiple achievements left to unlock. Please follow the Fandom Effect podcast on all available platforms and unlock the next level. If that doesn't work, just turn it on and off.